What's up guys, welcome to your 5th 3DsMax tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to bind objects together, and we're going to be building some pipes to make it look like a bendy straw like you'd get at McDonald's or something, and we're going to be binding it together with another tube. So let's go ahead and click tube right here and create our first tube. So I'm going to create something like this, and make sure you drag down instead of up. And now let's go ahead and modify it. Set radius 1, which is the inner radius, to something like 6, and then set the radius 2, which is just a little bit bigger, to 7. And now I'm gonna go ahead and change the height. If I go ahead and drag out here, I can see a little more. Go ahead and gotta select it again. Select it, modify, and change that height until you think you got, like, that looks like the height of a straw. So go ahead and I'm just gonna move this up so it's above the plane, and I'm gonna go ahead and create another one. Remember, your radius is 6 and 7, and you can change the other height to whatever you want. So go ahead and create tube, and let's go ahead and create another one. Drag out, drag down, and now change your radius 1 to 6, change your radius 2 to 7, and then go ahead and scroll your height until you think that looks good. And now let's go ahead and move this so it's a little bit closer. So in your top one, move it to the top, or move it closer to one another. And then in your left, or anytime, or your front, it really doesn't matter, go ahead and drag it up so they are close to one another. They don't need to be touching. Actually, you probably want them a little far apart like that. So now we got two tubes that are same radius but different heights. And as you can see, we're missing just the bendy part of the straw right now. So that's what we're going to create. So let's zoom in on this since we don't need all that. And go ahead and instead of your standard primitives, and make sure you're in your create still, go ahead and click extended primitives, and then go ahead and click hose. And we're going to create a hose right now. So just go ahead and drag out and drag up. And now we got a hose. And I know that this isn't on top of this or whatever, but that doesn't really matter right now. So the first thing we want to do before we even change the diameter or anything like that is go ahead and connect it. So what you need to do, let's just go ahead and I'm going to deselect this, select your hose and go up to modify, and that way I just like working in modify better. Go ahead and click bound to object pivots. So go ahead and select that, and that's going to allow you to bind this hose that we just created to your sections of your pipe or tube. So go ahead and pick top object, click that, and this allows you to click your top object, and now it says top tube 2. So now let's go ahead and pick bottom object, and go ahead and press that. And now you see our hose is bound to our tubes. So let's scroll out a little bit, and now that it's bound to our tubes, we need to fix it up a little bit. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is change the tension. So just change it to something that looks nice, like 32, and just mess around with it, like 18 for the bottom. That looks good. Now aside from that, what we want to do is set the start and end value. And this depends. You always want to go 0 to start and 100 to end. So let me zoom up in here, and I'll show you what happens if you don't go to 0 or 100. So if you go like from 50%, then the only thing you're editing is 50% of the tube. So you want to start at 0 and go to 100, and this way you can edit the entire hose, not the tube. So after that, what we want to do is probably go to cycles, and what cycles means is pretty much, in this case, how many bends. So we probably want to go something that looks good. That's too much, like 9. That looks good. And now this diameter right here, right under common hose parameters, this is the diameter of your let's see, you see the outer ridges right here and your inner ridges when it expands out and in. The diameter under common hose properties is your diameter of your inner. So let's go ahead and set that to something like, let me see, something that looks good, 13. That looks pretty good to me. So if we change it, we decide it looks bad, we can always come back. And now we want to go under hose shape, and this is the last thing we're going to do. And we're going to want to change the parameter, or excuse me, the diameter of the entire hose. So go ahead and probably the the best view for viewing this is the top, since you can see the diameter of the top hose. So go ahead and click this again, or your hose, and go ahead and change the parameter, or excuse me, how come I keep saying parameter, diameter of your hose by just scrolling down until it fits like right there. So that looks good from the top view, and also the perspective view, if we zoom in, that looks pretty good as well. So now we have a bendy straw, and we can go ahead and change our views with our view cube, and bam, look at that. So probably the only things you want to do now is you can change the color by clicking like color, set them all the same, change this color, and then go ahead and change this color, and just make sure they're all uniform color, so it kind of looks like, you know, a straw is all the same color, so got to keep it like that. And now if you want to see this kind of moving around, go ahead and select the shorter tube that we just created, and go ahead in the move tool, and you can see what happens when we move our straw around. The bendable part stays with it since we connected or bound those objects, and we can go ahead and move it down, side to side, left or right, and we can also click rotate, and we want to make sure, and we can go ahead and rotate it like this. So that is how you bind objects to one another. Again, anytime you want to bind an object, just in the modifying panel, with the hose, click bound to object pivots, and then you pick your two objects you want to bind it to. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial on how to create a bendy straw, or how to create a piping system and connect them with hoses. Again, I use tubes and hoses. So thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and in the next tutorial I'll be showing you how to create something a little more advanced probably. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next tutorial. What's up everyone, welcome to your 6th 3D Studio Max tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over how to select object in the advanced kind of way. So in the last tutorial, I'm guessing you probably had a problem with selecting objects that were either right behind each other or right on top of each other, and it got kind of confusing sometimes. So I'm going to show you real easy ways that the pros select objects. So you already know that you can select objects this way by clicking select object and clicking on one right here. But another thing that you usually want to do is whenever you're working with pretty advanced animations, you have not only this geometry, but you also have shapes, lights, cameras, and all that kind of stuff. So in order to only be able to filter your selections, you can go up here to the filter menu. It's called the selection filter, and you can click only select in, let's say, cameras. So now that we don't have any cameras in here, if we try to select something, it won't work. All of these weren't created with cameras, but rather geometry. So let's go ahead and click geometry, and now we can only select geometric shapes. So let's go ahead and change that to all, so I can tell you guys some more things. Now, aside from filtering your selections, you can also select by name, and how you do this is you go to edit, and then you go to select by, and then you go to name, and this brings up all the things that you can select. So for example, click hose, which is the bendy part, and click OK, and now your hose is selected. So if that was like in the middle of a bunch of complex animations, you can just select it by name and it will select it for you. Now, aside from selecting by name, you can select by a similar color. So let's go ahead and change this color right here. I'll change it to like blue or something. And whenever you select by color, any object you pick, it's going to select all the objects of the same color. So we got 3 objects right here: tube number 2, the bendy part, and tube number 1. So say we want to select all objects of the same color as tube number 2, so we can select these 2 tubes and not the hose. So go ahead and put edit, select by color, and now if we click any of these colors, all the similar colors are going to be selected. So if you look in this left view, this tube is selected, this smaller tube, and this long tube is selected, but this bendy straw, or the bendy part, is not selected because it's a different color. So now that we know how to select my name and select by color, another thing that is really useful is how to select multiple objects. So go ahead and press H, and this brings up the select from box, as you can see. And in order to select individual objects like last time, all we have to do is click on the hose and press OK. But say we want to select multiple objects, or many. So in order to do this, you can go ahead and click on the tube, say tube number 1, and then go ahead and click on your control on your keyboard and click another one. And any selection you add to the list is going to be selected. So if you click it again, it deselects it. So that's how you can select multiple objects. Now what Shift does when you hold it down on your keyboard, it selects a range of them. So say you want to select everything from tube number 1 to hose number 1. Select tube number 1, then hold down Shift and select hose number 1. So when you hold down Control on your keyboard, it selects them individually. And when you select Shift on your keyboard, click one, select Shift, it selects the entire range. So that's how you can do that. And aside from this, let me cancel this. This also works in the viewport. So say for example we want to select this tube, we can hold down Control on our keyboard, and with Control held down we can select this tube, and now only these two tubes are selected. And again, if you want to deselect one of them, go ahead and hold down Control and deselect one of them by clicking. So now let me right click or click away to deselect everything. And now what I want to go over is how to lock a selection. So for example, say we have a selection of our two tubes. So we have this one, I'm going to hold down Control and select this one. Anytime we know we're going to be working with this selection only and we want to lock it, you want to go down here until this lock symbol right here. This is Selection Lock Toggle. So when you click this right here and go up to Select Object, anything else we try to select, see I'm clicking Select Object right here, it's not selecting. So I can only work with these two. So anytime I want to lock this selection and not be able to select anything else, see I can't select this, you need to go over to Selection Lock Toggle. So now let's unlock that, and now we can select other stuff. So aside from that, I guess the only other thing that I can think of is, other than lock selection, is how to edit name selection sets. And what this means is it's kind of like lock selections, but you can return them if you want. So the best example is just to show you. So go ahead and click these tubes again, and now we have these two pink tubes selected and not this blue one. Anytime we want to save this selection for later, what we need to do is go up to here, and this is edit name selection sets. That's what I was talking about. And I already have apples in there, which I was playing around with it. But in order to create a new set, you need to select two objects, and my tubes are already selected, and go ahead and press create new set, and then go ahead and go to tubes. And then if you click away, you have a preset selection of tubes. So anytime you're editing this, yada yada yada, edit the tube, change color a little bit, do some other stuff, and then you think, alright, I want to go back to that selection I saved. All you have to do is go to this drop down list and click tubes, and those tubes are selected again. So this is how you can do predefined selections, and if you know you're going to be working with some certain objects a lot, that's how you do it. And if you decide that you want to get new selection or add another one, just go ahead and get rid of that and add another one. You can figure out what all these buttons mean. Just add another one, subtract selected objects. They're pretty simple. I'm not going to be going in depth of that, or else it'll just be boring. So I guess the only other thing, and I already said that before, but I remembered one more thing, is to isolate an object that you want to work with. And this is really useful if you want to work with just one object and concentrate on it. To do this, you go up, I have a selection in case you didn't see already of these two tubes. Go up to Tools and then go to Isolate Selection, and you can also click Alt Q. And what this means is everything that isn't selected disappears, but it doesn't really disappear like you deleted it, it just disappears from view. So now you can see we are in our selection mode that only our two straws or two tubes were selected. So again, click X out of that and we're back to normal. So again, one last time, anytime you want to do that, click your selection, hold down Alt Q, and then you isolate that one object so you can model and work with that. and anytime you want to get rid of it, just click that X right there and it brings you back. So that's your quick tutorial on how to select objects, and it's going to come in handy when we're working with some pretty complex animations and objects and we have them stacked on top of each other and stuff. Now you're going to know how to select them easier and how to isolate one another so you can model that individual object. So thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.